Well, the worst nightmare that real estate agents have might very well come true. So, based on enormous legal pressures, the way real estate agents are paid in the US just hit a critical point. So, one of the MLSs has already settled one of these major commission lawsuits. They already agreed to pay $3 million in damages and no longer require buyer broker compensation. Two other major commission lawsuits are set for trial. I've made a lot of content on that. And one of the most influential people in the real estate industry has issued a call to arms for the industry to act now or risk getting caught unprepared for the potential foundational change to the way real estate agents get paid. And there's one thing that I'm stuck on that I'd love to get your feedback, which I'll talk later about in this video. So let's do a quick review of what's happening with all of this pressure on real estate commissions in the US real estate market. So as you probably know, and if you're not, this is super important. There's multiple class action lawsuits happening right now. And the basis of the lawsuit is this: homeowners are upset that they're paying buyer agent commissions. They believe that real estate commissions are inflated, costing homeowners hundreds and billions of dollars. So here's the thing: if the plaintiffs win, buyers who want an agent will have to pay their commission versus sellers paying their commission. This changed the entire landscape of how real estate is done in the US. So the question, of course, is if this happens, will buyers agents be a thing of the past? Will we need buyers agents at all? And you can debate it both ways. There's one side of the argument. There's a lot of agents who believe, hey, listen, yes, we believe that the buyer agent will survive if that happens because buyers agents provide all of this value. There's another side of the argument who says, well, we'll see, because buyers agents, the perceived value of a buyer's agent, if a buyer has to pay their commission, it may not be there. Buyers might end up just going directly to the listing agent. Now, here's the scary thing. One MLS has already settled on a commission lawsuit. And the thing is, until this happened, this was all hypothetical. Yes, there are those two major class action lawsuits that are set for trial this summer, but there's been no direct outcome of that until now. So one of these lawsuits has already been settled. The MLS PIN has agreed to pay $3 million and stop requiring sellers to offer buyer broker compensation, a practice at the core of two other major lawsuits. So up until this point, again, the risk was, back and forth as to, is this thing going to happen or not? And now that lawsuit has been settled, of course, that's going to come about in the two major class action lawsuits. How that will affect things, we don't know, but it's not great if you look at this as a negative thing, which I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Now, the other thing that just happened literally this week, Jack Miller and Stefan Swinepool, who run a consulting firm called T360, they just addressed the entire industry. They sent a letter out addressing the entire industry. Let me share with you what that letter said. So here's the letter. The letter says, "Attention real estate brokerage industry. The intense legal regulatory scrutiny on the residential real estate brokerage industry's predominant compensation structure in which buyer brokers receive compensation directly from listing brokers via the MLS mediated cooperation agreement upon the sale of a home has just hit a critical point." This is what I mentioned. The recent settlement between the MLS PIN and the plaintiffs in this case reveals that a foundational change to the structure will most likely occur sooner than later. Now, they go on to say they make recommendations of what should happen immediately. This just came out this week. One, they said NAR should immediately pass a mandatory rule to its MLS policy and code of ethics that requires buyer's broker to have signed buyer broker agreements that clearly spell out compensation terms signed before showing MLS listed properties. That's the first thing. The second thing they said, brokerages should, as soon as possible, require signed executed buyer broker agreements at the beginning of their agents' agreements with buyers. And then the third thing, agents should review all of their marketing materials and buyer services and update them accordingly. Essentially, this major consulting firm that a lot of industry industry titans really hang on their every word, they go to them for major advice, they're already saying, hey, this is probably going to happen. It probably makes sense to start preparing. And so in my head, I'm saying, okay, well, what if this happens? What if the two major class action lawsuits end up resulting in what happened in this smaller case across the entire real estate industry? And you see, the thing is, that's how most real estate markets work across the world. It's just the United States that have this buyer agent, listing agent thing, where seller pays 5 or 6%, and then the agent splits that with the other agent that brings a buyer. In most other countries, it's not done that way. That's part of this case too. That's what the attorneys for the plaintiff is arguing. And so I said, okay, what could this new landscape look like for us if the US operated this way? So what I did is I grabbed one of the agents that I coach from Australia who sells real estate in this structure. And here's what he had to say. In Australia, from my understanding, that's how real estate's done. You go get a listing, the seller pays you a commission, but they're not paying a buyer agent commission at all, correct?
Not at all.
So how does that work?
So we as a real estate agent only have one client, and that client is the vendor. Our servicing goes beyond that, and obviously we service the buyers that we bring into the property. But our one priority is just making sure that we get the top dollar for that owner.
Got it.
That owner pays us. We take care of the service of bringing the buyer in.
How do you handle showings? I mean, buyers are calling you, and then you guys have to keep running over to the property and just showing it all the time. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So out here, Saturday is sort of game day for a lot of areas. Saturday is when everybody will have their open homes. But you can imagine a lot of areas, there's different types of buyers. So we do a lot of private inspections throughout the week as well. But it's your team or your responsibility to get that buyer in the door. I
don't know if that's the end of the world. Like I kind of like that because you control the entire process, correct? Is there ever a world where there's a buyer's agent involved ever?
Yeah, sometimes. And I got to tell you that the times that I've worked with a buyer's agent, they've gotten deals done for me that I wasn't able to get done myself. And my owners are definitely happy. And their clients, whoever they've overpaid or not, we got a deal done that kept my clients as happy as possible.
So if a buyer wants representation, the buyer in Australia pays his or her commission, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's essentially what the States is looking at. And from my understanding, a lot of European countries are the same way. Is that how you understand it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the States that's doing it weirdly. For you guys, it's like, I can't believe that's what's happening, correct?
Correct. But even better, you just think of the benefits it brings you. You qualify the buyer. You never have to worry about having an argument with a buyer's agent. You're never fighting the middle person. It's you, the buyer, and what you can bring to the owner as an offer. And even better, once you receive an offer, imagine knowing the person, being able to tell the story of who the buyer is to your owner. You're gonna be able to put a deal together much easier than, hey, somebody came through, I've got an offer at X amount, do you accept it? Oh, they're just trying to get a discount. That's what your owner might say. Whereas if you can personalize it, which you know the person, so you absolutely can, a lot easier to get a deal through. Yeah.
So what type of commission, how's the commission structure work in Australia for you and the owner?
Yeah. So for me and the owner, it's just very simply, they will pay a percentage of what we're going to sell, looking at an average of 2 to 2.5 out in this area. And then they'll cover marketing as well.
So what are the downsides to, because you know the States model, right? So because we're a lot of real estate agents, Nicholas, are like freaking out, if this happens, what does this mean? I'm looking at it as a potential positive because as a listing agent, I mean, actually really there's a lot of upsides to this structure. And so from your perspective, what's the hardest part about not having buyer's agents? I know you don't have any context, but is there ever a world where you can just list a property and just have your open house once a week so you don't have to keep running back to the property all week and your seller's having to keep the home for sale all the time? Because to me, that would make a lot of sense if we had all the showings just on one day.
Yeah. And that's how you're going to start off as a single agent. Absolutely. That's how you'll start off in certain areas. I work in an area where it's very heavily first home buyers, and then those first home buyers will upsize to the next suburban area within our local area. So for me, it's just about time that I can put into all these buyers. I had a property that probably had somewhere between 60 to 100 people wanting to look at it within the space of 3 days.
Wow.
And if I was by myself, that would take an extreme amount of time. But the stage I'm at now, I work with a greater team. So I work part of a brand out here, bigger team, which means I have more people to be able to come in. And essentially the team that I work for, the other agents work as buyer's agents for me. They'll take a split of my commission if they're able to introduce the buyer who's willing to pay the most to get the deal done.
Yeah.
So as you start to grow, you can grow that team, and that's how you can get more people in to cover those appointments throughout the day. But as you're starting out, absolutely, you can do 1 or 2 open homes per week, bring those buyers through, present those offers to the owner, and then the buyer calls us directly.
Got it.
This is really where we start to talk about the benefit of having it exclusively. One of your guys in your training program, Micah, just posted something about listing nine listings this month, and out here, stock is king. So all I think is if Micah has 9 listings on the market, Micah is about to get inundated with calls from buyers, which means that his prospecting comes straight out of those calls that are people calling him. So we're not talking about cold calls right now. We're talking about hot leads because people are calling him directly.
Yeah.
And whether they're going to sell now, researching the area, or people are going to sell a few years down the track, his database is growing purely from the people who are calling him because he has the properties on the market.
What a great point. I didn't even think about that. Because the people buying your listing, of course, have properties to sell in many cases.
Correct. If somebody's thinking about selling their house, the one way they're going to know what price their house might be worth is based on the other sales. So you'll find that people coming through the open homes, people calling you, will be a mixture of people looking to buy, people researching the area, or people researching you.
So if this happens and agents are forced to adapt, here are some upsides that I see. Number 1, we'll have a listing agent only industry. You see, forever now, I've been focused on helping agents primarily build a listing-based business. Well, if these lawsuits go through and the way real estate commissions are handled in the US changes forever, this will force agents to focus on getting listings. And I think if agents do that and they accept the fact that they're going to be a listing-based agent, that life gets better as a result of that. And so there's a lot of upsides to having a listing-based business, all of which you already know. Number 2, I think that we'll have less agents in the industry. Now, before you get mad at me, right? I think that naturally speaking, there's a lot of agents that won't list property. They don't want to list property. There's a lot of part-time people. There's a lot of weekend warriors that just simply work with buyers. And I think a lot of those agents will probably not be in the industry. And therefore, there'll be a bigger portion of the pie for the agents that are in the business. And then number 3, it's easier for agents to get clients. So here's the thing. Just like Nicholas had mentioned in that interview I just did with him, think about a world like this. You list properties and the market comes to you. That puts an agent in a really good position from a lead generation standpoint, from a client acquisition standpoint. When you have the product and the entire market is forced to come to you for that product, it's a lot easier for you to generate more business. And just like Nicholas said in that interview, just imagine you list a property, you have an open house, and all of the buyers perhaps don't have an agent, so they all come to see you. Well, a lot of those buyers will have homes to sell. They'll have homes to list for sale. And so lead generation, the way lead generation will work for our industry will also change dramatically. So much so, I think potentially those buyer portals like Zillow would be in massive trouble, and we might regain some market share, we being the real estate agents. Number 4, I believe agents will make more money as a result. It's easy to say, well, if commissions get cut in half and the new standard is 3% when you list a property, well, doesn't that mean that we're going to make a lot less money? Well, no, because of some of the things I just said. Let's just say if buyer agents are gone, it's primarily a listing-based industry, and you have the whole buyer segment of the market coming to you. I believe that the agents that are in the industry, that do stay in the industry, there'll be a lot less of them. There'll be a lot more transactions available per agent, and as a result, agents make more money. But there's still something that I'm stuck on. You see, sellers agree up front to pay a commission to the listing agent to sell their home. Sellers also agree up front that the listing agent can use a portion of that commission to pay a buyer's agent. And so how does that affect these major lawsuits? When you have thousands and thousands of homeowners, part of this class action lawsuit, arguing the fact, hey, we don't think we should be paying buyer agent commissions, when they agreed to do so up front, when it was negotiated up front. I'm sure the attorneys for the defendants are going to make that a huge part of their case, but we'll have to see.